Hi, folks. Happy Earth Day. It's Matthew here in the basement in London. Just wanted to update you on a few things going on at the international level in relation to climate protection and how we're being distracted quite a lot about climate action because of conflict in Ukraine and Middle East. Um, Here are some documents. I'll start with the finance minister's documents from the G7. Some of them are indicating that the G7 is doing a lot to boost collaboration, not only within its Western traditional members, but also beyond and towards BRICS and the G20. But on the other hand, there's still some sort of lacking in I guess, understanding of what the needs of the emerging countries are. Uh, so, just to get started here, you can see that the G7 is saying price and financial stability are a prerequisite for sustainable and balanced growth. And yet, um, there's still a massive focus on the Middle East and Ukraine. Significant geopolitical risks to the outlook, primarily from Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine and the situation in the Middle East, could affect trade, supply chains, and commodity prices. So here we are, Earth Day. Is the Earth going to get repaired? Are we going to have climate action during all of this war? It's a very open question. And look at some of the details here of what the G7 are focusing on. So they're supporting Ukraine's long-term recovery and reconstruction, and this will require 486 billion over 10 years. So massive amounts of money. Now, I'm not saying that dealing with these conflicts isn't important. I'm saying it is important to deal with them, but it seems that they're getting a little bit too much attention versus the global problems. So, what the G7 leaders are focused on is now taking money from Russia, or they're saying here, we welcome the EU proposals to direct the extraordinary revenues stemming from Russia's sovereign immobilized assets for the benefit of Ukraine. So this is potentially going to increase the conflict between BRIC nations, the emerging nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, etc., and the G7. So while they're saying they want to deal with these problems, they're potentially making it worse here with this proposal to take Russia's money, appropriate it basically. They're saying it's consistent with international law and our respective legal systems, but it's hard to understand how taking money from Russia and giving it to Ukraine is necessarily going to help end the war. Um, so they're saying here that climate change is super important. We encourage ongoing work on the role of public-private partnerships in reducing the insurance protection gap. Another important thing for the Earth, of course, and for the people living on it is that it's becoming very difficult and very expensive to insure property and other forms of insurance because of the rapidly worsening climate change. And that needs to be addressed, I say, as a higher priority. Um, so here they're saying we welcome G20 discussions on bigger, better, and more effective multilateral development banks. I've done a story on Kazi on this. It is hopeful in a sense. There's a weird amount of money here, 200 billion. They're talking about more than that in the multilateral development bank announcement. So it's a bit unclear and it's very vague exactly how this money is going to come, where it's coming from, and how it will help. But there are details. If you look on kazi.org, you can see some links and reports on this. But cooperation among the multilateral development banks on implementing sustainability projects is potentially very powerful. especially if those balance sheets can be leveraged to get more money flowing. But they're talking hundreds of millions of years when they need to be talking a couple of $1 trillion a year. So here they're reaffirming the importance of stepping up efforts to address debt challenges. This is very important given that arguably the Western nations have massively boosted interest rates globally. I mean, they say they're victims in the interest rate increase, but I say these are decisions that have been made by the Western countries, and it's resulted in much higher interest rates for everyone. This is limiting abilities of the poor countries, especially, to deal with climate action. There's a few examples here. So they're talking about a common framework to address debt challenges. And Sri Lanka is an example that I know a little bit about. There's some rumours that they're going to forgive Sri Lanka's debt if they take on climate action in a more concerted way. It says here, we welcome the advanced work towards finalisation of the Memorandum of Understanding for Debt Treatment by Sri Lanka by the Official Creditor Committee. Building on the Sri Lanka case, debt vulnerabilities in middle-income countries could be addressed through multilateral coordination. This is hopeful, and there are some more examples, so have a look in the document. I'll put it on my website, and you can get it on the G7 Italia website as well. So they're saying here, we welcome the development of climate resilient debt clauses to enhance the safety net for borrowers facing the impacts of climate change and encourage more creditors to offer these climate resilient debt clauses. And now they're saying that will increase the protection for vulnerable countries, and I'm going to take them at their word for that. They're also here talking about the tax system. This is the final bit I'll address. The tax system, we've seen decades where global corporations have extracted lots of profitable resources from emerging countries, and then all the tax has really flowed to wherever the companies are headquartered. So there is a change coming. Apparently the G7, the OECD, and more countries, even the G20, they're looking at trying to make sure that the countries adding value get the tax revenue from these global corporations. We reiterate our strong commitment to establish a more stable and fairer international tax system, but they're dragging their feet behind the scenes. They're saying these things and they're not doing it very quickly. They're doing it slower than they said they would. The implementation of the two-pillar solution is our top priority. This is focusing on the biggest global corporations and then the second biggest. And we remain committed to finalising the work within the OECD G20 inclusive framework, and they're calling for more action. But at the same time, you can see here at the end, they're asking, there's a debate, noting the debate in the United Nations for shaping a framework convention on international tax cooperation. They're emphasising the importance of consensus-based decisions, of course, prioritising issues more likely to achieve consensus, that makes sense. But here, focusing on enhancing domestic resource mobilisation and capacity building in tax matters for developing countries. So here's the rich countries saying that one of the big important things is to mobilise domestic resources in the developing countries who have been exploited. So I find that a lot of this text, if you read it, it sounds good, but it seems to be biased against the emerging countries, and in a way it doesn't look that good for progressing protection of the climate, protection of biodiversity at all. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.